Hello, Dr. Childress here, and in this video series I'm talking with you, the child or adolescent who's involved in a particular type of family conflict following a divorce of your parents, in which you are entirely rejecting of a relationship with one of your parents who you feel is just really annoying and irritating, and you may even wind up sort of almost hating this parent. And you would like to spend the entirety of your time over with the favored parent, where you don't feel this kind of distress and anger. And been talking about sort of the origins of those feelings for you. Now, I don't doubt the authenticity of what you're feeling. What's the problem, though, is how you're attributing the cause. What you think is the cause, the inadequacy and fundamental failure or emotional abuse of the rejected parent, isn't accurate. Okay? They're not a bad parent. They are a normal range parent. They love you very much. Everything's okay with the parenting over there. But there's been some problems. There's been a twist or a knot in the attachment system that's producing some problems, and that's what's producing the pain and anger and frustration that you're feeling. Now, in the first segment, I talked about what the attachment system was. It's a fundamental motivational system in humans and all animals to bond to the parent in order to receive protection from predators. And in the prior segment here, I was talking about how you and the favored parent, following the divorce, you were induced into offering criticisms of the rejected parent, and that these criticisms were then inflamed by the favored parent, who responded with what appeared to be nurturing support. Oh, I can't believe that they did that to you, you poor thing. You know, they're so insensitive to your feelings, and I hate when they get, like that, or they have these anger management problems. And so it appears to be support for your criticism, but actually what it does is it validates the criticism that the other parent is fundamentally bad or inadequate, and that you need protection from them because they're so bad, that their level of inadequacy achieves almost a level of emotional or psychological abuse. Now, that's not true. Okay, the other parent's fine, but this story, this definition got created. Okay, and it wasn't because the favored parent was actively bad-mouthing the other parent and trying to convince you to hate the other parent. You authentically had these feelings and this frustration and irritation, and it appears as though the other favored parent was simply being supportive or understanding of those, and I get it. Now, in this segment here, I'm going to be talking about where that anger and that hatred and irritation comes from. Now, remember, with the attachment system, there's two characteristic features of the attachment system. There's a possessive ownership to the relationship. My mother, my father, my husband, my wife, my brother, my sister, my son, my daughter. The person belongs to me, and I belong to that person. Now, this is interesting because if you'll notice, you probably are pulling back on that ownership towards the rejected parent. You may feel like, even reached the level of feeling like that parent doesn't belong to me and I don't belong to them. In some cases, kids who are involved in this process begin to identify more with a step-parent, a stepmother, a stepfather, rather than their actual mother and actual father. And so they kind of replace one with the other. Now, that's not how the attachment system works. People are not replaceable. Okay, and the attachment system is very specific. It's to my mother, my father. Now, you may think that you're rejecting of a relationship with a rejected parent because they are such a bad parent. But again, that's not how the attachment system works. Because in an authentic attachment system, children actually bond more strongly to an abusive parent than they do to a good parent. Let me run that by you again. The children bond more strongly to a bad parent than they do to a good parent. Why is that? Well, because if the parent is a bad parent and is rejecting of a child or hostile towards a child or is just mean and nasty, Well, that's a very insecure parent-child relationship. That child can't trust that if a predator comes, that parent's going to protect the child. So that's a very insecure relationship, which motivates the attachment system to bond more closely to that parent in order to get parental protection from predators. And so the child will begin to do things to get attention or to act up, or may adopt the attitude of, if only I act good enough, then maybe you'll love me. If I do the right thing, then maybe then you'll love me. And so it's very tragic to see sometimes with these kids, these emotionally abused kids, who really, really want the love of the abusive parent. I used to work in the foster care system, and I saw that a lot, where the abused children, and these were bad parents, are in the foster care system, that these children still wanted that relationship and desperately wanted that relationship from an abusive parent, from a bad parent. So you're not rejecting the rejected parent because they're a bad parent. Okay, that doesn't happen. Children do not reject parents. Children who rejected parents were eaten by predators. That doesn't happen. There's something else going on here that's creating that hostility, that anger. Now, if you'll remember, the second feature of an attachment-mediated relationship is a grief response when it's severed. That when we lose an attachment-mediated relationship, we feel this tremendous grief. It's extremely painful. You'll see at funerals people sobbing and sobbing over the loss of a husband or a parent or a child. Very painful. Now, in your situation, after the divorce, you and the favored parent kind of co-created this meaning, or co-created this definition of the rejected parent as being fundamentally inadequate and as representing a threat or danger to you. A danger of sort of emotional or psychological abuse. And what that did was suppress the functioning of the attachment system so that you no longer felt the need to bond, or the motivation to bond to the rejected parent, because children don't bond to predators. And that's how you were defining that parent, as the threat or the danger. And instead they're motivated to flee the predator and bond to the protected parent, which is kind of what you're doing. But now, even though the attachment system on the surface is being suppressed, underneath, it's still working. Okay? The attachment system doesn't go away. It evolved across millions of years of evolution. Baby zebra gets close to mommy zebra. So the attachment system is still working. It's still operative. And it's still motivating you to bond to the rejected parent. And so you have this brain system, a fundamental motivational system, the attachment system, that's motivating you strongly to bond to the rejected parent. But you're not. They're the predator. They're the threat. And so you're fleeing from them. That's the disruption to the attachment system that's causing a grief response. What you're experiencing, the pain and the anger and the frustration, is a grief response because your attachment system isn't fulfilling its job. You're not allowing it to fulfill itself and to complete its bonding to the rejected parent. And so you're experiencing a grief response relative to that parent. Now, one of the things you may think that is evidence that this parent, the rejected parent, is actually a bad parent and is causing this, is that every time you're with that parent, every time you're with the rejected parent, it hurts more. It's more frustrating. You feel all this distress and anger. Whereas when you're back with the favored parent, you don't feel that. Well, it must be something about the rejected parent, right? Because when you're with them, you feel it, and when you're not with them, you don't. And so it must be something they're doing that's causing this. That's not true. What it is the attachment system. When you're with the rejected parent, the attachment system says, oh, good, you're here, and motivates you more strongly to bond to that parent. But because you're not bonding with that parent, you have a bigger grief response, which hurts more, which then makes you angry and frustrated and irritable and because you're not bonding with that parent.